Good morning. Welcome to the Science of Mind class. I'm Dr. Petra, and I'm sorry that I'm missing those of you who normally come into the class with me. We're only online today. We have quite a few of our staff and key volunteers out sick, but we expect them to all be together with us and back on track here very quickly. We'll let you know as soon as we're back in person. But today we're online only. So it's so great to have you join us. Huge shout out and thank you to Tracy Brown for being taking care of the class last week, not yesterday, last week. And of course, Ryan Brown for being always there to anchor it. So we're continuing on in the Finding the Christ on page 364, the Indivisible Whole. And it's so in alignment with what we're going to talk about this morning at our Sunday celebration as well. It's always really funny when that happens. So the indivisible whole, this is the fundamental reality that we have to start bending our mind around as we are growing in our spiritual understanding, growing in our understanding of the nature of reality, and thinking about this notion of the Christ consciousness that we've been talking about. I almost feel like I just want to read these paragraphs to you, but I'm going to try not to read all of them to you because they're just so chock full with an entirely different way of thinking about reality than the way that we've grown up with, whether from our previous religion or from science or just from our experience of the world as human beings. The indivisible whole. Our conscious intelligence is as much of life as we understand. So as much of this reality as we understand is what we are conscious about life. And so as our understanding shifts and changes and grows, our consciousness about life, our awareness of what life really is, changes. I love this statement. We have stopped looking for the Spirit because we have found it. It is what you are, and it is what I am. We could not be anything else if we tried. The thing that we look with is the thing we have been looking for. It says elsewhere in the Science of Mind, that which we are looking for, we are looking with and looking at. So whatever it is, spirit, that which we are looking for. When we are looking for spirit, we are looking with it from our own eyes, and we are everywhere in the universe, everywhere in the world, everywhere in our experience, every human being, every being. What we are looking for, we are looking with. The thing that we look with is the thing we are looking for. So much of the Science of Mind is a shift from a desire to get or acquire or somehow see it outside of ourselves, but remembering that the shift actually happens within us. What we have to do is shift our come from place. I call it our come from place. Do I come from the place of separation? Do I come from the place of victimhood? Do I come from the place of, I have to figure this out? Do I come from the place of, well, there's spirit out there and there's me down here, and somehow I have to become spiritual and bridge the gap? Or is my come from place the recognition of this indivisible wholeness? The thing that we look with is the thing we are looking for. So we've stopped looking for the law, we have found it, right? We've seen that in the universe, we call it universal subjectivity or soul or the law of cause and effect. We have found the law and we have demonstrated it. And we find that both the law and spirit is limitless. What is it we need for greater freedom? Nothing but a greater realization of what we already know. So what's the difference between knowing something and realizing it? Well, knowing it is a great place to start if we understand knowing as understanding it, having an idea about it, thinking about it, right? That's all the work that we do in our brain with our intellect and our rational ability to analyze and be with an idea, right? But to realize it is to actually have a full-bodied experience of it, which means not only does our mind, but also our heart and our bodies line up with this. Well, we might move beyond the word knowing to this awareness, this deep recognition, or what the science of mind calls the realization of truth. To realize it, to embody it so fully that it becomes real. Realize it. Realize it means to make it real. Not just as an idea, a nice idea that we believe in, we could talk about, we can play around with, but to realize it. And that realizing it is the application of the truths actually to our own awareness and consciousness. We should never hesitate to say that we know the truth, because we do. We do know the truth. For the realization of the unity of God and humanity is the truth. We simply need a greater realization of it. We simply need a greater realization of our oneness, of this indivisible whole. And I remember having this extraordinary recognition at one point that I had spent so much of my spiritual life trying to bridge the gap between me and that thing, which we call spirit or universal spirit or God or that Buddha nature, that it was somehow something I had to bridge the gap to, and I had to become something different than I am. And when I realized that there's no gap, there's no human, and then over here, the divine truth, or human, and then over here, our spiritual nature. It's the realization, this deep realization that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And we can say those words. It's a great place to start. It's a great affirmation. And we can say the words. The question is, do we realize, really realize what that means? What our lives actually are, who we really are, and that is at the come from place that we want to find our way to. That's the come from place. We simply need a greater realization of this unity. Now, how do we get it? How do we get this greater realization of unity, this greater realization of the one indivisible whole? How do we get it? Only by penetrating deeper and yet deeper into our own divine nature, pushing further and further back into the infinite, right? It's not by having esoteric experiences of flights of, whatever out there, although those do happen and they're powerful and real. But to recognize this individual wholeness at an embodied experience, it's actually to go deeper into my own inner nature, to keep pushing beyond the false thoughts that I say, well, not really, and I'm not good enough, and oh my God, there I go again, and or the traumas that we've experienced, or the childhood lack that we've had, or just the way that our senses show us reality. To go beyond that, to continue to push beyond that. For me, myself personally, one of the ways that I've done that is I've really focused on this beautiful statement, and it's been attributed to a lot of people. So we're not exactly sure who said it first, but the statement is, God is a circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. Whose center is everywhere. So at the center of anything is the center of the universe. Simultaneously, at the center of any other thing is also the center of the universe. So anywhere and any when is the center of the universe. Okay, well, it's mind-boggling just to begin to think about, but then to imagine, to really imagine the reality that that center is actually the center of our own being, right? The center of our own being, not the center of our brain, not even necessarily the center of our heart, but the center of our own being. It's where the ancients in the East called our chi, that center that is the balance point, right? The center of our own being. And so for years in meditation, rather than trying to go out into the universe, I spent a lot of time trying to go into the center, to the center of my being. That took a long time because I had to actually feel into it, and I had to get out of my brain and stop, being distracted and all the stuff that meditation teaches us how to do. Find that center place within me, and then to begin to just contemplate the idea that this center that is in me is the center of the universe. Not the only center, right? This is not about pride and hubris and arrogance and all that nonsense, right? Because we know that everything everywhere is a center, but it's also here. So I made the extraordinary discovery in months and months and months of meditation that when we go into the center and we really do the work, that this is the center of the universe, we discover that we're bigger on the inside than we are on the outside. Because this center is the infinite center. It's the center of the one infinite being, which is centered here and there and there and there and there and everywhere else. We discover and realize this indivisible wholeness. And it's not just by trying to connect with our oneness with other people or our oneness with animals. I mean, all of that is a way of beginning to recognize that we're all part of an individual wholeness. But do you see that's still out there? Oh, yes, I'm one with all people. Oh, yes, I'm one with the plants and the animals, and I'm one with all of that, but it's still all out there. We still haven't discovered the realization of the truth of our own nature, that this indivisible wholeness is the truth of who we are, and that the center of the universe is in fact right at the center of our very being. Only by penetrating deeper and yet deeper into our own divine nature, pushing further and further back into the infinite. Where are we to do this? There is no place except within that we can do it. No place except within that we can do it. It's not out there. Yes, the infinite universal reality is, of course, out there. But for us to realize this indivisible wholeness, we have to find it within the center of the universe, a center right where we are. Not in our human being, but in the truth of who we are. Who is to do it for us? No one. No one can do this for us. No one can. Others can treat for us. They can set the law in motion for us. This is both good and helpful. But the evolution of the individual, the unfoldment of the personality, the enlightenment of the soul, the illumination of the spirit can come only to the degree that the individual, ourselves, the individual him or herself proposes to let life operate through us. To let life operate through us as us. Paul says, let the mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus. Now, this isn't just the intellect. This is the mind, the consciousness that is also in Christ Jesus, which is the mind of God, the only mind, the supreme intelligence of the universe. So every time we say, I don't know, I'm confused, there's a part of me that thinks this, and there's a part of me that believes it, but a part of me that doesn't. Every time we do that, we are not coming from the truth of who we are. And because we don't come from it, we can't find it, and we don't see it. Do you see? It's not about finding it out there. Oh yes, we can have inspiration and moments of experience where we have a sense of connection or peace or being one with something. But the work, the true work, is done within. It is the work that is done within. And it's not just the work that's done in our brains, right? When we use the word mind in the science of mind, I think if it were being written today, we would use the word consciousness. And we know our consciousness is a whole bodied experience. It's mental, it's emotional, it's physical, it's the mind and the heart and the body all working as a indivisible wholeness. And if we're the microcosm of the macrocosm, right, this indivisible wholeness is the representation of the indivisible wholeness of spirit, law, and the individualized expression of that, finding the Christ. The answer to every question is within us, because we are within spirit, and spirit is an indivisible whole. The solution to every problem is within us. The healing of all disease is within us. The forgiveness of all sin is within us. The raising of the dead is within us. Heaven is within us. Right here. And do you see, that has to become our come from place. Are we coming from our spiritual truth? Are we coming from the recognition that we live in an indivisible wholeness? And when we see things that are out of alignment with that, we can recognize that there are false beliefs, a sense of separation, or things that are playing out that are outside of the experience of the indivisible wholeness, where this truth has been forgotten and isn't being revealed and isn't being realized. Each of us then represents the whole. How should we feel toward the whole? Oh, we'll just stop there. That's because we're going to get into a whole other conversation. So let's just stop there. This indivisible wholeness, the fact that there is the center, a center of the universe, right where you are, right where each one of us is. And the realization of this, let's talk about that. How have you found that? What keeps you from experiencing it? What comments or questions or thoughts do you have about this? Because this is the heart of the matter, right here. This is the heart of the matter. And when Buddha was sitting under the tree, the Bodhi tree, and he had his moment of enlightenment, right? His moment of enlightenment was about this indivisible wholeness. When Jesus said, when you see me, you see the Father, that was a statement of indivisible wholeness. These are the clues that we have that there's something really, really, really important here. And so we want to spend a little bit of time with it. So I'm going to turn to Ryan and let him share with you how you can chat and just say good morning. And hi, Ryan. Good morning.
Well, good morning to you too, Dr. Petra, and a happy New Year's to everybody who's joining us, whether you're watching us online or you're visiting us in the one mind, because as you can see, we live in the future here with our very modernistic background. So give us a thumbs up if you like how our modernistic background
very is minimalistic.
Very minimalistic. That's because we're from the future. So with that being said, we do want to open this up. This is an interactive discussion, so we encourage everybody to participate with us. And I know that we're online right now, and we are also missing our very iconic Richard.
Yes.
Who's at home getting nice and warm, I'm sure.
And well, getting well.
And well. And so there's a couple different ways that you could do that. If you're here with us inside of the Zoom room, you can always hit the raise your hand icon and I can call you into the room. Or you can put your questions and comments inside of the chat and I can bring those in as well. And the same goes true for those who are visiting us on Facebook Live. You can put your questions and comments inside of the chat and I can bring those into the room as well. And I always like to mention that I keep these chats anonymous. That way we can continue to have a safe container for spiritual growth. So I do see that we have somebody here. Connie, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and join the conversation?
Yes,
Good
thank
morning,
you.
Connie.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr. Petra. Um, One of the things that uh, is keeping me from realizing my wholeness is the wiring that I have in my brain from past experiences. And thanks to CSL, I'm not assuming anymore that that just is the way it is. I realize that I can pick up new thoughts and wire them in, and the other ones will dissipate. And
Yeah.
it's such a, oh my goodness, such a fantastic miracle for me to be able to do that. And I'm in process. One of them that got wired in was being critical because my mom and dad were so polarized and critical about their politics. They were right, the other guys were wrong. They were good, the other guys were bad. And I adopted that. I became critical, and but not about politics. For me, and polarized, it's about natural health. I learned a lot about it. I started when I was about 25, and in one of the groups in CSL, somebody mentioned, and it's so fantastic for me, that she also is critical to some degree, and when that starts coming into her mind and her maybe her actions, her thoughts, whatever, she says to herself, I do not know the complete picture here.
Mhm.
And I don't know what led to that person being 80 pounds overweight, of which I'm critical. And then the criticism just recedes. It's so good. But I want other methods as well for reducing that tendency to be teachy preachy about natural health and critical as well. But it is receding, definitely. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yay. Thank you, Connie. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for your openness, right? We all have those places, whether it's criticism or judgment or not good enough or all the ways in which we were, the patterns that were laid down, right? And so, and you evidence something really important. There are lots of ways in which we can engage in deprogramming ourselves with all of this false information, right? And so finding something that another person has used that really speaks to us is a great way of beginning to think about these things differently. And what you're talking about ultimately is the process of reframing. And so sometimes when we invite ourselves or each other to think about something differently, it actually feels like that we're making another person wrong, or that they're not doing it right, they're not spiritual enough, or whatever. But the truth is, what we're simply doing with ourselves and with our friends is to help reframe it. So what you got from that person was a reframe. The reframe is, there might be something going on that I don't know about, and I sure don't know everything there is to know about this, right? Do you see that completely reframes the way in which we engage? What that means is it changes our come from place. A reframe changes our come from place because it changes the way in which we're narrating the story to ourselves. The most powerful reframe that we can do are spiritual reframes, right? That we can reframe ourselves from being a separate, isolated individuals to a part of the universal wholeness, an individualized expression of that universal wholeness, whose point is to express, to create, and to experience this beautiful, joy-filled life. Right? That's a complete reframe from the idea that we're here to suffer, or we're here to learn lessons, or we're here to work out our karma, or any of those kinds of ideas. It's also a reframe from a very mechanical or mechanistic or logical and rational scientific way of approaching life. So we're reframing it into, what if it's all part of the whole? What if it's all part of the universe? What if it's all part of the one? And so anything that helps us reframe it from a spiritual point of view is going to begin to break the patterns. The other thing is, there is some really interesting studies have been done. It's really great to say an affirmation, as Connie suggested, right? That's an affirmative statement that helps us reframe something. But our brains are actually designed to answer questions. And so, right, the biological original questions are, am I in danger? Is this a dangerous situation? Is this friendly, right? Because it's all about safety and security. But our brains are designed to answer the question. And so if we can frame our questions, how could I come from a spiritual point of view in this? How could I find my center in this? Where is the center of the divine presence in this? You see, if we start asking ourselves that question, our brain is actually designed to go find an answer. And it will find an answer in something we've read, something we've heard, something somebody has said that has sparked or lodged, right? And it will remind us, oh, wait, I don't really know everything that's going on here. So maybe I could be less critical. Do you see? It's gone out and it's found that for us. And the more that we feed ourselves spiritual truth, the more that we read inspirational things that help us see or at least imagine this indivisible wholeness. When we ask ourselves the question, our brain has to go rifling through all of our files to find us an answer. And those answers will help us shift our come from place, so that our come from place is not from the old patterns, but from the spiritual truth. So thanks, Connie, for joining us. All right, Ryan.
Yeah, so I see that we have Shauna. Do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, Shauna, and join the conversation?
Good morning, Shauna.
Good morning, Dr. Petra. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And I have a realization that 2022 is going to be even better than 2021. So my path to realization of being one with Source is always when I'm in a state of love or joy. It just seems to open my spirit up more to the wonder. And I just had 2 weeks with a 5.5-year-old and a 1-year-old teacher. And it's amazing to see the world through their eyes. It's amazing to watch them laugh with each other over a silly thing, a deep belly laugh, right? Or to sit and watch a sunset with them. Or we went on a walk into the sand dunes and literally sat in the middle of the sand for an hour and just grabbed handfuls of sand and, poured it over our legs, right? And it's amazing their ability to be so present in that action, right? There is no time, there is no space, there is just wonder. And as I come back into my Dallas life, I live separate from them. They live on the East Coast. But as I come back into my Dallas life, I want to keep their teaching. It's not even teaching. I want to keep their sense of being with me and try to stop in my day on a more frequent basis and grab that wonder again, because I found that when I'm in that wonder, there's no confusion about the oneness. There's not a sense of separation, right? And I lose it when I come. Well, I don't lose it when I come here, but it's just not as present as when I'm in the energy of my 2 little teachers.
Yes. Beautiful. Shauna, thank you so much for sharing that. I love that. That is so awesome. And it is, I think, I was feeling the word and then you said it, right? It's about presence. When we're little like that, and our grandchildren and our children, they are very present to the moment. And what does that mean? They're not running a story about it. They're not having a conversation with themselves about it. Like, is it good enough? And I want to be doing something else. And what's going on next? And where am I going? And who's here? And what, all that nonsense. Am I doing it right? Right? They're just in the moment, holding up sand, pouring it over their legs, experiencing it, feeling it, watching it, seeing what happens to it, and just being fully present. And I think that's so fundamentally what the practice of mindfulness is trying to teach us. It's trying to teach us to just be present with what is, not in some accepting or resignation sort of way, but just be present to what is. And in that presence, in that moment, without the story about it, it is absolutely possible, and not only possible, but surprisingly effortless to see that presence reflecting back, isn't it? To be in that state of oneness and to experience it, that all that's happening is the universal spirit expressing itself in all of its myriad of forms and beauty. And that sense of wonder and awe, right? And our master teacher, Finding the Christ consciousness, said, and the little children will lead us. Because there isn't all of that filtering process that we've learned over time that tells us that we're separate or that life is difficult or whatever other stories we have conjured up, and how beautiful it is to have that as an anchor, right? And so to use that anchor, now the question is, how do I engage with my life as if I were sitting here with my granddaughters? How do I sit in this meeting as if I was sitting here with my granddaughters? How do I sit on this Zoom call? How do I write this paper? How do I engage with this? How do I clean my house? How do I do that in the same spirit? What if I had, and right? And so if we ask those questions, we're gonna come up with answers, or we're gonna remember that state of wonder. And how amazing it is that life really is beautiful and joy-filled, and there's a whole lot of love to be shared. So thank you, Shauna. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Ryan.
All right, I see that we have somebody who has their hand raised, but before I get to Brenda, I want to ask this question because I thought this was a really good question to interject with. So, what is the difference between a spiritual reframe and a spiritual bypass?
Well, we have to define what a spiritual bypass is, right? A spiritual bypass is a denial of an experience. A spiritual bypass is an unwillingness to look at or confront what's going on. A spiritual reframe looks at it directly and then invites a spiritual consciousness to the forefront. A spiritual bypass is using our spirituality to try to avoid pain or experiences, to try to avoid having to look at this fact, like Connie so beautifully said, to look at this fact that I'm critical. A spiritual bypass would be, well, I'm not critical. I'll just affirm I'm not critical. I'm not critical, right? Whereas a spiritual reframe is, oh, wow, I'm being critical. Wait, but the truth is, I don't know everything there is to know about this. And surely there is a more loving place I can come from than critical. Do you see, it starts with a recognition, oh, wow, I'm being really critical. So a spiritual bypass seeks to avoid that, doesn't want to own the fact that we have these patterns and we do these things, and that we have to actually engage with them and do the work of reframing it. It's not, oh, I'm just not going to see it. It's no, I'm looking right at it and going, but that's not the spiritual truth. So what is the spiritual truth here? How do I apply it? And how do I live through this experience? I have to go through this experience from my spiritual point of view, as opposed to, I'm just going to pretend that it doesn't exist. I'm just going to say it's not real. I'm just going to shove it aside. So that's to me how that would be different. I think sometimes we're really quick to judge other people as having a spiritual bypass, which as far as I'm concerned isn't our business. I think the only thing that we can do is really look in our own consciousness. Are we engaging directly, clearly, on point with whatever is in front of us and applying a spiritual principle, right? I think that's the difference. With a spiritual reframe or our spiritual work, we are applying a spiritual principle. With a spiritual bypass, we are seeking to use a spiritual principle to somehow avoid or not have to deal with whatever it is that's going on. So it's a great question. Thanks. Great question.
All right, Brenda, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and join in the conversation?
Good morning, Dr. Petra,
Good
Brian,
morning,
and
Linda.
community. It is so wonderful for me to reconnect with the whole. Your question, what keeps us from that place of wholeness? Number one, my own resistance when I've been living in fear and the old programming. And it's great to have the knowledge in my head that I've gained through CSL that I am one. And what I've been finding, so I stepped away for about 6 weeks because I allowed myself to be swallowed by the realities of my human life, and was practicing spiritual bypass to get out of a lot of physical issues. And I can be wonderfully pain-free and joyous, zipping up in the universe, but not engaged in my life. And in going from knowing in my head and those old experiences Connie was talking about, one of the things I've been practicing this past month is looking at my reactivity as an old habit. I can know the truth. I can know how to cook or drive a car or exercise. And if I don't get off the couch and do those things, and I can't do it perfectly the first time, and the toddler falls down and gets back up, and they fall down and they get back up. And I've been discovering that is some of the places that I go to in my isolation and negative thinking, just habit. That oh, here's a situation that brought up fear. I run away. Oh, here's a situation that brings up unworthiness. I take it in and turn it into self-destruction. And it's not that I don't know, and it's not that I don't want to come from that place of Christ consciousness, but that slipping from the ridge into the rut. And so one of the things that has helped me this past month has been connecting with someone else deep in CSL who I met through classes, who frequently reminds me of the truth of my oneness and my worthiness. Not that they can do it for me, but they hold up the mirror, and by repetition, by hearing the quotes from Holmes or Troward, or by hearing the truth reflected back, it takes repetition to create new habits. And as much as I know in my head, I have to practice the new habit until it becomes natural.
Yes, beautiful. What a great realization, Brenda, and how beautifully articulated. You have said something, so many really, really, really important things. And thank you. Oh my gosh, we should just replay what Brenda said. You could replay it over and over and over again. So many people ask me, why am I still doing this? I know the truth. Why did I get so afraid? Why did I do, right? And as Brenda so beautifully said, once we know the truth, we can't unknow it. But we do these things purely out of habit for no other reason. No other reason. That's why it's called a habit. And you can't change a habit purely by thinking about it. And you can't change a habit purely by intending something different. That's why they say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Because as Brenda said, we must apply and then practice. So that means not the spiritual bypass of, oh, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. But wow, look, I had just had a habitual response and I choose not to do that anymore. So, and the more that we do that, right, we begin to see it in retrospect, and we can see it and say, wait, that's not how I want to behave. And we can bring that awareness closer and closer and closer till we're in the middle of the reactivity, the middle of the reaction, excuse me. And that, when we are there, that's when we can interrupt the pattern. But we have to apply our spiritual truth at that moment. Do you see? If we do a spiritual bypass and we say, oh, well, it's all fine, it doesn't matter, that's a spiritual bypass. No, it does matter, because once again, I'm habitually responding to life the way that I have, we're just on autopilot. But my consciousness becomes aware of it. I bring it from the, 3 months later, 3 weeks later, 3 hours later, until that moment. And in that moment, I have the opportunity to say, stop. Don't put that food in your mouth. Don't let those words come out of your mouth. And do the reframe in that moment. That's where the reframe happens. Oh my God, I'm being critical. Oh my God, I'm running away. Oh my God, I've let my fear overcome my truth that I know I'm spiritually supported, right? Do you see? In that moment, we are interrupting the pattern. And that's what that deep spiritual work is. It has to be applied and practiced. And quite frankly, that's the hard grown-up work, because that's what it means to be conscious. We have to be conscious that we are behaving habitually or thinking habitually. And we have to stop ourselves, which is the discipline we learn in meditation. We learn how to discipline our consciousness to say, no, I'm not going to be distracted by that thought. I'm going to come back to my breath. No, I'm not going to be critical. I am going to think about this differently. No, I'm not going to run away. I'm going to feel my feelings. I'm going to speak my feelings, and I'm going to remember the truth that the universe supports me. Do you see? In that moment, we are shifting, and our come from place is, if it's a one indivisible wholeness, I will not die from this experience. I will not be supported in this experience. There is that within me which knows and can walk through it, not avoid it, not just magically make it all go away, but can in fact walk through it to the other side, which is a deeper realization of spiritual truth, and a deeper realization that I can actually, whatever it is, not eat the food, not be critical, not run away, and find a more loving, joy-filled, healthy way of engaging with life. And it takes that moment of awareness. And then eventually, my experience is, right, we do that work, and eventually we start catching it before it starts. We can see it coming. We can feel the feeling of, I want to start blaming, I want to start projecting, I want to start making it somebody, and we can feel that arising, but we have in fact realized that that's not the truth. And so we can begin to divert it before it even shows up, before it actually manifests in words or behavior. And we can begin to shift into that come from place of, wait, the universe supports me. I have everything that I need. I don't need to be critical. I don't need to take that bite. I don't need to run away, because I am the universe showing up as me. Everything that I need right here, the strength, the stability, the security, the love, the power, whatever it is that I need in this moment, I have, because it's the universe as me, because I'm a center of all of that. Right? That's the work, the application and the practice of the knowingness of this, right? That's what it means to have this realization. And then to do our best over and 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 over again to apply it. And eventually, right? Eventually, these moments of habitual behavior, they're simply opportunities to practice. right? Just like if you're playing sports, you go out every day and you practice, and you have somebody start, let's say you're playing tennis and you have somebody start throwing the ball at you harder, or doing more intense serves, or practicing the backhand that you're not very good at. And if your habit is to always go to your forehand, you get somebody to say, hey, you got to keep aiming the ball at the backhand because I don't really like it. I'm not very good at it. And the habit is to be the forehand. So you practice. You practice, and half the time, yeah, you have to get better and better and better at it until what? You're building a new habit. And then that new habit is so established that it becomes the way in which we engage in the world. All right, so we're going to carry on with this chapter for a little bit more. We have some really lovely things to talk about, and we're going to end up with the Triumphant Christ, which is one of my favorite topics in this section. So I do want to let you know that we have a visioning class coming up. Carol Merlot is doing a visioning class coming up this week. It is online only for right now. And then we have later in the month, we have another class. You can create the life of your dreams, talking about spiritual principles and spiritual practices with Sherry Wood. Again, it's going to be online only for now. As we watch the surge, and we watch the surge, the numbers come back down again, and we can begin having our classes in person again. All right, so happy New Year, happy 2022, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you in the celebration in 30 minutes, or we'll see you next week. Bye for now.